there, this is Talking Europe with me, Catherine Nicholson, today at the European Parliament in Brussels. Now, it was a French election to elect a French president, but Emmanuel Macron took to the stage below the quintessentially French Eiffel Tower on election night for his victory speech to the sound of the European anthem, Beethoven's Ode to Joy. He told his supporters that their fellow electors had chosen, quote, a more independent France and a stronger Europe. This as many of them waved EU flags, as well as the French tricolore. So what does the re-election of Monsieur Europe mean for the Union and for France's place in it? With me are MEPs from the next biggest EU economies to France, Nicolas Baer from Germany and Emmanuel Macron's political group Renew Europe. Hello.
Hello.
And also joining us, Paolo Borchia from Italy, a member of the same European group as Marine Le Pen, who lost out in the second round of the vote in France. From the Identity and Democracy group. Hi there.
Hello.
OK, well, let's get going with you. Nicolas Baer, I'll come to you first. You're from the same group as the winner of this election. I know you're pleased with the result, but Emmanuel Macron's margin between 2017 and 2022 halved, the gap between him and Marine Le Pen, perhaps raising some questions.
Yes, but I think first we can really be glad that Macron won this election. And I mean, 16 points in head of Marine Le Pen is a good step. First and second, I think this is really a good message for Europe, as Monsieur Macron really realized also a pro-European campaign. He is very ambitious. He has also the courage to lead in Europe. And this is quite the opposite to Marine Le Pen, who wanted to step out of common projects, not only German and French projects, but also European projects, who wanted to give priority to France. And I think we have with President Macron a person which is really balancing national interest we all have in the member states and also European necessities, because in this time, when I see to the conflict in Ukraine, the war of Putin against a sovereign Ukraine, we have to be in common as European leaders, as member states, as European Union, and this is only by Macron as president. Marine Le Pen would not have been able to do so.
OK, so you obviously see it as a big endorsement of Macron, his European ideals. Paolo Borchia, as I said, Marine Le Pen, a candidate from your political group here in the Parliament, defeated again, as we saw. She was openly Euro-critical, I think we can say. A rejection, then, of the common ideas that your parties hold?
Well, let's have a look to figures and let's try to think about the future. I think the worst news was the abstention. 29% of French people decided to avoid to vote. Marine Le Pen obtained 3 million votes more than 2017. Mr. Macron lost 2 million votes. So it means that France is very divided, and that's another concerning aspect. I think that, for sure, we'll need to wait to the legislative elections of the 12th of June before giving a final judgment. But I think that there are these two worsening aspects. And I think that, in general, Mr. Macron ran a campaign maybe forgetting who it was in the past years, because he realized that something did not in the right way, and so Marine Le Pen tried to occupy this space. But in general, I think that one thing is refusing the idea of Europe. A different thing is to have a critical approach to what Europe done in the
let's look into
years.
that, definitely. Sorry to jump in, we don't have much time, as you know. Marine Le Pen abandoned the so-called Frexit position in 2019. This time around, like you say, she had a Euro-critical stance. Her programme, though, not just in terms of Europe, but it included policies like putting French citizens first in France for certain jobs, housing, social benefits. This policy runs completely contrary to how the European Union's single market and its freedom of movement works. Either she wanted France to leave the European Union, or she wanted the European Union and these rules of how it functions today to fall apart.
Well, let's try to understand that globalization and the dynamics of last year's had some people that weren't very happy, some people that felt defeated by all these dynamics. And so I think it's a common sense thing to try to give them a reply. But in general, I think that Mr. Macron, in Italy, it's very popular, the approach that Mr. Macron get in Ventimiglia, trying to
But that's
give
talking
back
about border control.
migrants.
I'm talking about freedom of movement around the bloc. So, for example, British people who've been living in France for 20 years,
Yes.
then Brexit happens, they get this sort of settled status. Marine Le Pen wanted them to be further down the queue than French people, and equally Italian people who were living in France, or Danish people. That's a fundamental challenge to how the European Union works.
Yes.
Let's talk to Nicolas Baer about that. Do you think Marine Le Pen wanted Brexit, but by stealth?
Yeah, I think this is just a camouflage for the project behind. And it's clear that we have divisions in the French society, and we see it may it be in the cities or in the landscape, may it be in different branches when they are future-proof or not. But it's clear that less common market doesn't help. It's the opposite of what is needed. So controls on the borders, as Marine Le Pen proposed, is quite the opposite what is needed for wealth and growth, also in the French society, for more jobs, for better paid jobs. And I think this is the challenge we have now, to reform, but in a form which helps people in France, in the other member states, and also on the European Union. And this means also to discuss about the competences, so have to be stronger, for example, for foreign affairs and defense, and to leave more flexibility on the ground when you are deciding, for example, on the future of jobs.
Yes, well, these are the matters, but after analyzing the matters, we should be able to propose the right solutions, because unfortunately Europe has been the region at the global level that didn't grow up in the last year at the economical level. And so, you know, there are expectations from poor people, there are expectations from migrants that decided to move from their home country to another country seeking for a better life. But it's obvious that if the economy is not in a wealthy situation, then it's very hard to give them positive replies.
Yes, but I think the reply is not to push back people, but the reply is to have a better common union, and also to have, for example, a common migration policy. So to be clear about who we invite, for example, because of the knowledge he brings in our societies, and also to be clear to have a common asylum system for those we have to protect. For example, people not fleeing for the moment because of Putin from Russia, because they cannot live their citizens' right in Russia. So we want to protect them all together. I suppose you even also in Italy, but at least the Italian government wants to do so. And I think we are stronger in common in those projects, and then leave more flexibility, more sovereignty also to the member states in those projects which are near on the ground by the citizen.
It's called the subsidiarity principle, and it is stated by
yes, of course, but this is not what Marine Le Pen was respecting.
That's probably where we're going to have to leave it for now. As you said, Paolo Borchia, we do have the parliamentary election coming up in France, so that will change the landscape again. Thank you both, Nicolas Baer, Paolo Borchia, for taking part in this very brief discussion here at the European Parliament. Now, before we say goodbye to you, our viewers, we just have time for a very quick fact check on an EU issue that came up in the French campaign. It's Fact or Fake, written and produced by Georgina Robertson and Sophie Samay.
Does holding the presidency of the Council of the EU mean you are head of the European Union? In one of the last televised debates before the first round of the French presidential election, the far-left candidate Jean-Luc Mélenchon, a former MEP, replied to questions about Europe.
If I'm elected, I will replace Mr. Macron at the head of the European Union for 6 months.
This is false for several reasons. Firstly, since January 1st, 2022, France has indeed held the presidency of the Council of the European Union. This is a rotating presidency and France's turn will wrap up on the 30th of June. That's just a few weeks after the second round runoff of France's presidential election, and not 6 months. Whichever head of state leads the presidency each time, it has very little power within the EU. The Lisbon Treaty of 2009 actually reduced the importance of the presidency significantly. In reality, the person who presides over EU summits of all 27 leaders, confusingly named the European Council, is currently Charles Michel, re-elected in March 2022 for a second 2.5-year term. The main role of the state that holds the other presidency is actually to organise specific meetings between EU member states. This state decides the agenda of each meeting but has no decision-making power over the 26 other states. The head of the state that holds the rotating presidency is absolutely not the head of the European Union. The key figures of the Union are European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, the aforementioned Charles Michel at the European Council, and Roberta Metsola, President of the European Parliament. There is no one head of the European Union.
There we go. There is no one head of the European Union. We've learned something today. I'd like to thank my debate guests again, Nicolas Baer, Paolo Borchia. Thank you both for being with us for this discussion.
Thank you very much.
And I hope to see you again for more Talking Europe here on France 24 very soon.